At exactly 11:47 p.m., the night before Adrian Rahman was supposed to get married, his dead girlfriend sent him a voice note. He was standing alone on the balcony of a 5-star hotel, 20 floors above a city drowning in lights, while laughter spilled out from the engagement dinner behind him. Inside, people were raising glasses. Outside, the wind was cold enough to feel honest. His phone vibrated once. Unknown number. Then the audio file appeared. Mira. Adrian stopped breathing. For a full 3 seconds, he forgot the sound of the city, the weight of the ring in his pocket, the life waiting for him tomorrow. Because Mira had been dead for exactly 14 months. His hands began to shake as he pressed play. Her voice came through soft, teasing, heartbreakingly alive. "Hi, Addy." Only she had called him that. "If you're hearing this, then tomorrow is your wedding day. Which means you did exactly what I thought you would do." Adrian gripped the railing so hard his knuckles whitened. "You chose the safe life." A long pause. He could hear her breathing on the recording. "Before you say I do to a woman you only half love, give me one last night. I left something behind for you. If you still remember how to be brave, go to the place where you first lied to me." The audio ended. Behind him, somebody called his name. Probably Clara. Probably her mother. Probably the future. But Adrian was no longer on that balcony. He was 6 years back, standing in the rain under the broken neon sign of a tiny bookstore cafe, where a girl with wet hair, furious eyes, and a paper cup of coffee had looked at him and said, "You just told me you love architecture because you want to build beautiful things." That's a lie. He had stared at her. "And what's the truth?" he'd asked. She had smiled. "You want to build things that don't leave." That was the first lie Mira ever caught. And now, somehow, even from the grave, she was asking him to stop lying. Adrian didn't remember walking through the hotel lobby. He didn't remember ignoring Clara's voice behind him or the startled faces of guests as he crossed the marble floor in yesterday's tailored suit. He only remembered the rain. Because it had started again. The city was wet and silver, just like the night he had met Mira. The bookstore cafe was closed now. The yellow paint was peeling. The windows were dusty. A for rent sign hung crookedly by the door. Adrian stood under the awning, soaked to the skin, staring at the place where his life had once begun and ended without permission. He found the key tape beneath the flower pot to the left of the entrance. Of course she had remembered that. Inside, the smell hit him first, old paper, damp wood, and something ghost-like from another life. The tables were gone, but the corner shelf still leaned slightly to the right, and the tiny stage where Mira used to sing on Thursdays was still there. On the counter lay a small envelope. In her handwriting. "You came. Good. Go to the stage. Look under the loose floorboard." "And Adrian? Don't leave halfway through this, the way you left us." He closed his eyes. The word has hit harder than death. There had once been an us. Not the kind people posted online. Not the shiny kind. The real kind. The kind that lived in late-night noodles and borrowed books. In missed buses and rooftop confessions. In arguments that ended with tears and kisses and promises made with foreheads touching. The kind of love that grew quietly, then all at once, until it became the one thing in the world you could no longer imagine surviving without. He found the loose floorboard and lifted it. There was a second voice recorder beneath it. He pressed play. "I knew you'd come to the cafe first," Mira said. "You always came back to the beginning whenever you got lost." A soft laugh. Then her voice turned more fragile. "Do you remember the first night we talked here? The power went out. Everyone panicked. You lit candles from the counter and put them on every table like it was the most normal thing in the world. I thought, this boy carries light like it belongs to him." Adrian swallowed hard. "You asked me why I sang sad songs when I smiled so much. I told you some people laugh because they know how quickly beautiful things disappear. You kiss me an hour later. He pressed his thumb against his mouth. Outside, thunder rolled. You told me that night you were terrified of becoming your father. A man who loved deeply once and then spent the rest of his life running from pain. I promised you that loving me would never ruin you. A pause. I was wrong. The room blurred. If you want the next clue, go to the old cinema on Rose Street. Seat F12. The place where you promised me forever, then asked for time. The recorder clicked off. Adrian stood in silence for a long time. Then he turned and walked back into the rain. The old cinema had been abandoned for 3 years. Its marquee was broken. Half the letters had fallen. The red carpet in the lobby was faded almost grey, and the ticket booth was empty except for dust and old receipts. Adrian forced the side door open. Every step echoed. Seat F12 was in the middle row, exactly where Mira had cried during an old black and white love film because the hero had come back too late. You hate tragic endings, Adrian had whispered, smiling. No, she had whispered back. I hate avoidable ones. There was a note tucked beneath the seat. Look up. He lifted his gaze. On the torn screen ahead, a projector suddenly flickered to life. Adrian froze. The image was shaky, homemade. Mira sat on a hospital bed wearing a grey sweater and no makeup. Her hair was shorter than he remembered. Her face was thinner. Her smile was still devastating. For a second, he forgot how to breathe. Hi, she said gently. This recording was harder to make because in this one, you can see me. Adrian stumbled backward into the seat. I know by now you figured out I planned this. You always said I was dramatic. Congratulations, I'm haunting you with production value. Despite everything, a broken sound escaped him, half laugh, half sob. Then her expression softened. This was filmed 3 weeks before I died. And before you get angry, yes, I know. You deserve to know. But you also deserved the life you worked for. You had just gotten the Dubai project. You were finally becoming everything you dreamed of. She looked away from the camera for a moment, as if searching for the strength to continue. The doctors told me my heart was failing faster than they expected. They gave me months, maybe less. I kept thinking, if I tell Adrian, he'll stay. And if he stays, one of us will die before our body does. Adrian pressed a fist to his mouth. I loved you too much to become the reason you buried your future. The rain battered the roof. But here's the truth I never said, a part of me hoped you would still choose me. That you would look at all my pushing, all my coldness, all the cruel things I said, and hear the fear underneath them. I hoped you'd fight harder. She smiled through tears. You didn't. Adrian doubled over like he'd been struck. In the dark cinema, there was nowhere to hide from the sentence. She wasn't accusing him. That was the cruelest part. She was simply telling the truth. When you left, I told everyone it was mutual. It wasn't. I sent you away because I was dying. But you left because you were scared. Maybe we were both trying to save each other. Maybe we were both cowards. The screen trembled slightly. If you still want the next clue, go to St. Mary's Hospital rooftop. Bring the ring. The video ended. Adrian sat in the darkness long after the projector died. He remembered the last fight now with unbearable clarity. Mira standing by her apartment window, arms folded, face pale. You should go, she had said. What? To Dubai. Take the project. Stop building your whole life around me. I'm not. You are. He had moved closer. Mira, what is going on? Nothing. I'm tired. I need space. Maybe I need more than space. He had stared at her, waiting for her to take it back. She hadn't. And because Adrian had always confused wounded pride with dignity, he had nodded, left, and told himself that if she loved him enough, she would call. She never did. 3 months later, he heard she was dead. Heart failure. He had read the message 3 times before the world lost color. Now, for the first time, he understood the shape of his own failure. It wasn't that he left. It was that love had asked him to stay in uncertainty, and he had chosen certainty instead. St. Mary's Hospital rooftop was locked, but the old night guard recognized Adrian the moment he saw him. "You're Mira's boy," the guard said quietly. Adrian flinched at the present tense. The old man handed him a key without another question. The rooftop garden was smaller than he remembered. There were only a few wooden benches, a water tank, and pots of dying basil. The city stretched beyond the rails like a wounded animal stitched with headlights. Mira had loved this roof. She used to come up here after visiting the children's ward downstairs, carrying paper stars she made with the kids. "Everybody is afraid in hospitals," she'd told Adrian once. "I just try to leave a little less fear behind." There, on the bench facing east, lay a final box. On top of it sat Adrian's old silver ring. On top of it sat Adrian's old silver ring, the one he had once offered Mira on this exact rooftop, laughing, nervous, 24 and broke. It hadn't been a real proposal. Not exactly. It had been a promise for later. "For when we're ready," he'd said. Mira had slipped it on anyway. "For when you stop thinking love is a test you can fail." Inside the box was a letter. Adrian opened it with trembling fingers. "Adrian, if you made it this far, then maybe there's still a pulse inside the life you built without me. I asked you to bring the ring because I wanted you to hold the weight of what we almost were. Not to punish you. Not even to make you regret me. Regret is easy. I wanted you to understand me. The saddest part of dying was not leaving the world. It was watching you become a man who thought love had to be safe to be real. Do you know what I loved most about you? It wasn't your plans, or your ambition, or the way you could sketch buildings on napkins like you were stealing them from heaven. It was your heart before fear taught it manners. The version of you who danced with me in traffic when the signal turned red. The version who took a train to another city because I once casually mentioned missing the sea. The version who believed that choosing someone could be enough. I didn't need perfection from you. I needed courage." Adrian's vision blurred. There was more. "Tomorrow, before you marry Clara, ask yourself one question: are you choosing her because you love her wildly, truthfully, fully? Or because she feels like a life that won't break? If it's the second one, let her go. Do not make another woman live inside the ruins you built with me. Clara deserves a whole heart. So did I. So do you." A tear dropped onto the page. "You once asked me what real love was. I didn't know then. I do now. Real love is not the grand promise. It is the brave one. The one that stays when the future goes dark. The one that tells the truth before it is convenient. The one that would rather break honestly than survive as a lie. If you ever loved me, and I know you did, then don't spend your life mourning me. Become softer. Become true. Call your mother more. Finish the community library we dreamed about. Sing even when your voice shakes. And when happiness comes again, don't punish it for not being me. My last selfish wish is this: let me be the love that changed you, not the ghost that kept you from living." And Adrian, when it rains, don't run. You met me in a storm. Live like that meant something. Forever in all the ways that mattered. Mira. Adrian didn't know how long he cried. For Mira. For the boy he had been. For the man he had become. For all the conversations that grief could not return. By the time dawn stained the sky pale blue, his chest felt torn open and clean in a way pain sometimes is, when it finally stops being denial. He looked at the ring in his hand. Then at the city. Then at himself, reflected faintly in the glass door of the stairwell. For the first time in years, he did not see a successful man. He saw a frightened one. And once he saw it, he could no longer pretend not to know. At 8:10 a.m., 3 hours before the ceremony, Adrian knocked on Clara's hotel room door. She opened it wearing a silk robe, half-finished makeup, and the exhausted face of a woman who had not slept. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Clara looked at his eyes, red, swollen, honest, and exhaled like she had been expecting this knock all along. "You saw her?" she asked softly. Adrian blinked. "What?" "Mira," Clara said. "Not literally. But whatever happened tonight, this is about her." He lowered his head. Clara stepped aside and let him in. "I've known for a long time," she said after a moment. "Not that you were still in love with her in some dramatic movie way. Worse than that. A part of you stopped fully living after she died, and I let myself believe that if I loved you steadily enough, you'd come back." Tears burned his eyes again. "I'm sorry." She nodded, already crying too. "I know. And I'm sorry to myself for accepting half." He looked at her then, really looked at her. Clara was kind. Intelligent. Loyal. Gentle in the ways life had taught her to be. He cared for her deeply. But care was not the same as truth. "I can't marry you," he said. Clara closed her eyes. A tear slipped free. Then she gave the saddest smile he had ever seen. "I know." No screaming. No shattered glass. No hatred. Just two good people standing in the wreckage of a wrong future, finally brave enough not to walk into it. She took off her engagement ring and placed it on the table between them. "Go do something real with your life, Adrian," she whispered. He cried then, not because he had lost her, but because she deserved to have never been asked to wait for a man who was still learning how to tell the truth. 1 year later, when it rained over the city, nobody saw Adrian run for cover anymore. They saw him unlocking the doors of a red brick building near Rose Street, where a hand-painted sign above the entrance read, "Mira House. Books. Music. Second chances." The community library had once been a dream scribbled on napkins between cheap coffees and unfinished kisses. Now it was real. Children read on colorful rugs by the windows. Teenagers learned guitar in the upstairs room. On Thursdays, local singers performed on a small wooden stage Adrian had built himself. In the corner, framed in simple oak, hung a sentence in white script. "Love is not the safe promise. It is the brave one." Some evenings, after everyone left, Adrian would sit alone beneath the warm yellow lights and listen to the city breathe beyond the glass. He still missed her. Grief did not leave dramatically. It changed shape. Some days it was a knife. Some days a song. Some days just the smell of rain and old paper. But it was no longer a prison. It had become a doorway. On the anniversary of Mira's death, Adrian climbed to the roof of St. Mary's with a paper star in his hand. The sky was heavy with clouds. The wind smelled like rain. He stood by the railing and smiled through the ache. "You were right," he said into the empty evening. It meant something. Then he let the paper star go. The first drop of rain touched his cheek. Then another. Then the whole sky opened. Adrian laughed, a raw, unguarded, beautiful sound, and tilted his face upward as the storm soaked him to the bone. Below him, the city flashed and roared and lived. Above him, thunder rolled like applause. And for one impossible second, in the wild music of rain and memory, he could almost hear Mira laughing too. Not behind him. Not gone. Just everywhere love had ever touched and changed him. And Adrian finally understood what forever really meant. It did not mean someone stayed. It meant they left a light in you bright enough to survive their absence. So he stood there in the storm, crying and smiling at once, while the city blurred into silver. And for the first time since losing her, he did not ask for one more chance. He simply whispered, "Thank you."